Hello, students. My name is Dr. Alice Mani. I will be imparting lessons on business law, course 306. This is part of the BBA Rural Management course. This course is divided into 4 units. You will have 16 modules covering the syllabus. The 4 modules are as follows. The first module is an introductory chapter. The second chapter is various acts. The third chapter is Sale of Goods Act, and the fourth and last chapter is Consumer Protection Act 2019. We will begin with the first unit, which is Introduction to Business Law and the Indian Contract Act. This module will be covered in 3 parts. The first lesson will look at the introduction to what is law, what is business law, the scope of business law, and the sources of business law. I have structured this lesson in the following way. This lesson will be an introduction to business law. This will cover 3 broad areas. The first will be an introduction to business law. Second, the scope of business law. And third, the sources of business law. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand the meaning and importance of business law. Second, you will get insights into the scope of business law. And third, the sources of business law. Before I begin, I want to do a small exercise. When I talk about law, what comes to your mind? Why is it important to have law? Take 5 minutes and write down whatever comes to your mind when you hear the term law. Do you like to have rules and regulations or not? Let me make it easy for you. When you write down the points about law, the common answers can be it is a rule established by authority or custom. It regulates the behavior of the community, etc. The word law has been derived from the Teutonic word lag, which means definite. Thus, law can be defined as a definite rule of conduct and followed in human relations. Laws apply equally to all people living in a country, locality, or state. It is interesting to know who makes laws. How are laws made? Why do you think that we need law? We come across rules and regulations in our day to day lives. If you purchase a mobile phone or laptop from a shop, you are protected by the Consumer Protection Act. Thus, law sets the standards for acceptable behavior in society. Secondly, law provides access to justice. Thirdly, law keeps everyone safe. Fourthly, laws are important to maintain law and order in the society. Fifthly, law protects human rights. Again, laws are important for social progress. The right to do business or profession, to work and earn a living, to acquire assets, etc. This list is endless. So, that is the importance of law. Now, let us see what is business law. Business law consists of laws relating to commerce, business, and trade. So, business law gives the rights and obligations of people entering into business transactions. It can be individuals, partnership firms, Hindu undivided families, or HUF, Association of Persons, or AOP, joint stock companies, trusts, etc. Knowledge of business law is essential for entering into business to avoid conflicts and to protect their rights. Now, let us discuss the scope of business law. The scope of business law is very vast and covers all aspects of commercial transactions. Business law includes the Indian Contract Act 1872, Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008, Sale of Goods Act 1930, Consumer Protection Act 2019, Banking Regulation Act 1949, Environment Protection Act 1986, Patents Act 2005, etc. Thus, the scope of business law touches all areas of our daily lives. Let me give you the second exercise. Take 5 minutes of your time and note down the functions of business law. Let me guess the common answers. Business law encompasses all laws to start and run the business. Moreover, it protects the rights of shareholders, exercises payment of tax, protects the intellectual property rights of businesses, helps in settling disputes, protects consumers' rights, provides standards and benchmarks, setting safety and operational standards, reduces the chance of frauds, and the fear of consequences will force everyone to follow business law. Thus, we can sum up the functions of business law in 2 points: regulation of commercial entities and regulation of commercial transactions. This sums up all the points you might have noted down when I had asked you to write as an activity. Now, let us look at the sources of business law. What do you mean by sources of business law? It is nothing but the origin, place, cause, resources, or institution from which business law is derived and got its validity. In this context, we can say that sources of business law can be summed up in 5 points. They are the common law, equity, the law merchant, the statute law, and case laws. Let me explain these points in detail. What is common law in business law? Common laws are derived from customs and precedents. It originated with the legal reforms of King Henry II of England in the 12th century. The customs and usages which evolved over the years were adopted as the unwritten laws by the English community. Examples are the offense of murder, theft, etc. It is called common because it applies equally across the whole country. In India, we got these traditional laws followed in England through the British rulers. The second source of business law is equity. Sometimes the suitors found the common law to be very rigid. So the dissatisfied suitors started complaining to the king. Thus, the king appointed a chancellor to hear the parties and to give a verdict. The chancellors began to sit as a separate court known as the Court of Chancery. The reliefs granted by courts of chancery were known as equitable remedies compared to common law. The third source of business law is the law merchant. The law merchant was developed in the 11th century to protect the foreign traders who were not protected under the local laws. This was a necessity for foreign traders to negotiate contracts, trademarks, and various business transactions. We know that Britishers came to India and started trading in our country, but they followed the law as merchants applicable and practiced in their country. This practice was followed by British traders throughout the colonial period. Thus, law merchants have become another source of business law in India. The fourth source of business law is the statute law. This means the acts of parliament or state legislature. The authority of Parliament is supreme. Parliament can pass any law it pleases and can nullify the decisions of the courts of law. To quote a recent example, the Goods and Services Tax was introduced in 2017 through a constitutional amendment to replace the indirect tax system in our country. Other acts like Indian Contract Act 1872, Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 are all passed in the Parliament. The fifth and last source of business law in our country is case law. This is based on the decision of judges. The simple rule is that what has been decided in earlier cases will be binding in future similar cases also. Moreover, the decisions of the Supreme Court of India are authoritative for all courts in India. Now, at the end of the lesson, with your understanding of business law, with the points you thought of when I had asked you to pen down, draw a flow chart explaining the meaning and importance of laws in our country which have an impact on our day-to-day lives. Hope you got a good insight on the topics of law, what is business law, the scope of business law, and the sources of business law. Until we meet again, bye from me. Thank you.